This is the most beautiful story I heard before, she said. Some nights change your life in a way you can never go back. That night was exactly one of those nights. For me, I'm 63 years old. I spent years teaching, living my life in order following certain rules. Then I retired and settled in a small, quiet town. I learned how to live with loneliness after losing Thomas. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in peace, but some things show up at your door when you least expect them, like Nathan coming back. Thomas's stepson, I hadn't seen him in 3 years. Back then. He was just a reckless, carefree kid. But now standing in front of me, he was a 27-year-old man. Life hadn't been kind to him. I could hear it in his voice when he called and asked, "Can I stay with you for a while?" My door was open to him, but the moment I saw him, I realized maybe I was the one who needed help. Nathan had changed. His shoulders were broader, his eyes deeper. That boyish look was gone, repped by something stronger, something with a different kind of pull. But the real difference, I felt it the next night in the kitchen. That night, the night everything started, the air felt heavy. There was this restlessness inside me. Maybe I just wasn't used to hearing someone else's breath in my house. Nathan had left early and hadn't come back all day. He looked troubled, but I didn't ask why some wounds aren't meant to be opened until you're ready. It was close to midnight when I finally heard the lock turn, relief mixed with tension in my chest. When Nathan walked in, his exhaustion and slight looseness from alcohol were impossible to miss. He was a little drunk, but not out of control. Our eyes met, and I could see he was carrying something heavy inside him. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, took a deep breath, and leaned back. "It's been a long night," he said, his voice low and tired, looking at him. I felt a wave of tenderness. This young man was carrying too much weight. I hesitated, then turned toward the kitchen. "I'll make you some coffee," I said. "Might help you sober up." As I walked into the kitchen, Nathan followed while I stood at the counter making coffee. I could feel his eyes on me even with my back turned. I knew he was watching me. "This place is warmer than I expected," he said suddenly. I glanced at him. "You mean the town warmer than anywhere I've been?" he answered. But his eyes weren't looking at the kitchen. They were looking at me for a second. My heart pounded. He was watching me for the first time in years. I felt someone's gaze on my skin. The silence in the kitchen as the coffee brooded said more than words could. Nathan leaned against the counter, one hand in his pocket, the other running through his hair. He looked tired, maybe even a little broken. I focused on placing the coffee cups on the counter, avoiding his gaze. "You know," Nathan said after a moment, his voice soft sometimes, "no matter where you go, you can't escape feeling lonely." I looked into his eyes. There was a vulnerability there I hadn't seen in a long time. "Loneliness is a strange thing," I said. "Sometimes you get so used to it that even when someone shows up, you don't know how to handle it." Nathan took the cup. "And you," he asked, "did you get used to it?" I took a deep breath. I don't know if I'd call it getting used to it, but over time, I learned to accept it. Life doesn't go back to what it was, but that doesn't mean you stop thinking about what's missing. Nathan nodded but didn't look away. "Sometimes people think they've gotten used to being alone," he said, "but really they're just trying not to feel anything." Something about his words stirred something deep inside me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I hadn't really gotten used to being alone. I had just been avoiding feeling anything at all. For a moment there was silence. The only sound came from the ticking clock. Nathan traced the rim of his coffee cup, watching me, unreadable. "You know, I've never seen you like this before," he said suddenly, a small smile playing on his lips. I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" He shrugged. "Still this strong, still this beautiful." After all these years, his words sent a ripple through me, but I tried not to show it. I lowered my eyes to my coffee cup, smiling slightly. "I guess time can't change everything." I said softly something. Settled between us. Maybe a closeness. Maybe the rebirth of something missing, but I wasn't sure what it was or if I wanted to know when I noticed how late it was. I stood up trying to shake off the confusion I should get to bed. I said with a small smile, "It's been a long day." Nathan nodded, but his eyes stayed on me. "Yeah, you're right." As I placed my cup in the sink and walked out of the kitchen, I could feel his gaze following me. It left a lingering thought I couldn't quite hold on to as I made my way to my bedroom. There was a storm inside me. That conversation had stirred something deep. Something I didn't know how to name that night as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I felt it again. That strange feeling Nathan had changed, not just in the way he looked, but in the way he carried himself, the way he spoke. And that changed was forcing me to face something I had been running from for a long time, and there was no stopping it now. Please don't leave without letting me know you're here. A comment, a like, or subscribing would mean everything I need. To feel your presence, to know I'm not alone if this story touched you, please show me.